Yo, what is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today's video, we are talking about the top 10 Smite pros of all time. And this is a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be to make. I thought I had a pretty set idea of what I would have as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I felt like I had to move stuff around a lot at the end because I didn't like where people would land. And then sometimes it would feel like they're too low. And I'll point out the ones that I feel like are too low. But I feel like I just can't move them up any farther. There's just too much talent. And I think we've seen a lot of really dominant Smite pros in our time. And I think it was a great game to watch. It was a great game to watch people compete in. So, yeah, without further ado, watch my brilliant list. So starting with number 10, the undisputed GOAT of his role. The problem is I felt like I couldn't move him up any farther. I feel like this was kind of like the hardest role to kind of pick a favorite from. It was Benji. Benji is the only solo laner that really stuck out to me as this guy dominated the game. All the way back into season 2 or season 3, one of those seasons, whichever, Benji made finals. Benji again made finals in season 5 and won. Benji again made finals in season 8, didn't win. But Benji's almost always been there at the top. He was just gifted. He didn't have to put a ton of time into the game, and he would just dominate. And it was incredible how much he was able to do. Best solo laner I think we've ever seen. As quoted multiple times, your favorite solo laner's favorite solo laner. Going to number 9, Cyclone spin. I had a difficulty of, did I want to put Cyclone on the list? Did I want to put him above Benji? Cyclone was just in the game at its peak, and he was doing something that other players in that role would not be doing. Cyclone in solo, Cyclone in jungle, Cyclone in ADC. He's been considered, at some point at least, the best player in that role, and it is just wild what he's been able to do. He's won his championship, so he kind of checks that off the list. I mean, he's had a couple other that he's been very close to winning and just not been able to do it. I don't think that the end of his career, he was the most mechanical player. I think like Panda was a better mechanical player. When he played against Coast, I think Coast was a better mechanical player. But his shot calling, his ability to kind of keep his team in it, and his overall macro knowledge just cannot be understated. If you listen to some of the comms with his teams, it was a lot of Cyclone, which is surprising. Going to number 8, a long-time retired player, but a dominant player nonetheless. Number 8 is Yaman. Yaman was the first superstar mid laner we ever saw. What he was able to do on just about any picks, whether it was a control utility mage like Janice, a DPS mage, area control mage, Hunter, Neath, Medusa, Zeus, I guess I could have named characters for all those. He was just doing it better than anyone else was at the time. And there was a time where, yes, adapting was considered the hardest carry on that team, and spoiler alert, adapting will be on the list. There was a debate at one point between adapting and Andenster, and that debate went on for 2-3 years. Nobody was in debate as the best mid laner with Yaman. It was Yaman at number 1, season 2, season 3, even into season 4, it was Yaman. And then, unfortunately, his career was cut short. He retired, but he was still the most dominant mid laner I think we saw for a stretch. And it was different watching him play in that time because he was so much better than any other mid laner. Number 7, Captain Twig. He got his ring because that was the one thing that would keep him off my top 10, but he got his ring. So regular season, he is the biggest winner of all time, and now he has his championship. He has done what a lot of people have been unable to do, and that's find maybe not like the highest amount of success every year, but he has found success every single year that he's competed, and he's done it in mid a couple times. He's done it in jungle. He's been a big piece for a lot of teams that you wouldn't expect. If you ask Polar Bear Mike about the team when Captain Twig was playing mid, what Twig was doing in mid on that team, phenomenal. Twig is just a incredible player. He got his ring, so he's getting a spot at number 7 on my list. Number 6, Aurora. This was the support that I think most supports looked up to. What he would do for metas and for gods and for god pools cannot be understated. If there was a meta that defined the game, Aurora was the one that created it. Or Aurora was the one that made it better. Or Aurora was the one that brought out a god that did it better. He would be a part of every single meta because he was just able to think about the game and see the game and play the game different or better than most other people. He got his ring. He almost got his second. He almost got his third. He never ended up getting that repeat, but he is a player that I think easily could have gotten his second if the chips just fell a little bit different. But Aurora's still a phenomenal player. And number 6. And now the only reason that I couldn't say the most dominant support is because Polar Bear Mike has orchestrated some beautiful, beautiful teams. And if he does end up beating a couple other teams in like season 5 and season 6 and winning a chip or two, we might be talking about him as the GOAT. But he's a two-timer, and he won it pretty far apart. He won it in season 4, I think, and in season 10, which is 6 years apart, which is really crazy to be able to dominate the game over that period of time. Also dominating in between those, but kind of in the same vein as Aurora, as most metas that you've heard of from a support, or most metas or gods played or anything like that. Mike was the one kind of orchestrating a lot of that. Probably the most dominant support finals I've ever seen was Mike on Fenrir on the Ghost of the Rival team against the Zapman team from back then. And it was incredible watching Mike play, orchestrate the game. Crazy they didn't win, but Mike easily deserves top 5. Going into number 4, adapting. And this one might feel a little low. And honestly, looking at the list, I thought it was going to be a little low also. But I've got a very clear top 3. And what those 3 were able to do trumps what adapting was able to do. Adapting, no slouch, but he is only my number 4. Adapting was the first hyper carry jungler that we saw do it for multiple years. I think Andy was very successful season 1, season 2, season 3. Adapting was doing it from season 2, maybe taking a year off in one of the years, all the way up to season 10. Hyper carrying, dominating. I do think he had a much worse back end of his career, kind of like Cyclone. Very good front end. I think Cyclone he made up for a little bit of the, maybe not mechanical great. He was still a great mechanical player, but Cyclone had a lot better comms and a lot better team play, and he was part of orchestrating a lot of what his teams would do. It didn't seem like adapting really had that as much. He still definitely did, but the most dominant 2-year period we ever saw was adapting in season 2 and season 3, hyper carrying energy and Epsilon, and it's why he easily makes it on the list. No worry about him missing it, but maybe he's a little bit lower than people would expect. Number 3, maybe a surprise to a lot of you, but Yarkor easily makes my top 3. There has to be something said about winning worlds one time. It is not an easy thing to do. Winning worlds is a very difficult thing to do. Yarkor did it 2 times, and not just 2 times in 10 years. He did it 2 times in 2 years. Oh, and on top of that, he did it in different roles. If Yarkor had a longer career, I think we could easily talk about him as the GOAT. This man went and won in solo, lane swapped over to ADC, won in ADC, and then stayed in ADC, didn't end up winning his final year, but he's still able to dominate the game in 2 different roles and win worlds on 2 different teams in 2 different roles. Like, it is crazy saying that out loud. If I told you Benji role swapped to jungle the year after winning season 4 and won in season 5, you'd be baffled. If I said that about anyone on this list, you would be baffled. But Yarkor actually did it, and he did it 2 years in a row. Crazy. What a phenomenal player. There's a couple players that I think I could say this about, but I could say it about Yarkor, and 99% of people agree with me. He is the most mechanically gifted player Smite's probably ever seen. That's how good he is. But he's not the GOAT. And at number 2, we got Paul. And with that, Zapman at 1. And when you talk about Paul, you have to talk about Zapman because they won a back-to-back together. They were the team that orchestrated it in season 6 and season 7. And if they stayed together, maybe we'd be talking about both of them as 3 times. But unfortunately for Paul, I think that season 8 year kind of told you who was the, I don't want to say biggest piece, but who meant more to their team in that season 8 year. They went up against each other in season 8. Zapman 3-0 swept Paul's team. Yes, I think a lot can be said about Zapman, and was he the most mechanical player of all time? Was he this? Was he that? Probably not. But he was a winner, and it wasn't like he won in the Plumber era. He dominated the game from season 3 on that Eager team with maybe a drop here or there, all the way up until season 10. Maybe he didn't go out great in season 10, but he is still Smite's GOAT as the only 3-time. Paul, though, is at number 2 because what I said about Yaman, about being the most dominant player that we've ever seen in mid in a 2-year stretch, Paul was the most dominant player over a 4-year stretch. And I don't mean dominant mid laner. Paul from season 6, 7, 8, and 9 was just otherworldly. We could talk about season 10. I think he had a slight fall off in season 10, but if you want to throw season 10 in there also and say most dominant 5 seasons we've ever seen from any player ever, I'd be fully on board because this player was phenomenal. He would bring this team back from the brink every time. There was never a doubt in your mind, if you were rooting for Paul, that there wasn't a chance that they could come back, whether it was through a sick flank that he pulls off, a sick pick, just a massive team fight ult, a massive team fight that he hyper carries. There were so many things that Paul did, and I think if he does get that third ring, easily Paul is the GOAT. I think Yarkor, if he gets that third ring, also could be considered for the GOAT. But there is something different about winning 3 worlds in a row, and you got to put Zatman at that one. But yeah, that's the video, the top 10 Smite Pros of all time. I was an honorable mention at number 11. I assume you guys figured that out when I went through all the lists and you didn't see me on there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with my top 10? Would you have somebody else as the GOAT? Or do you agree with me that Zatman is the GOAT? Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.